Jim Jones just can't let it go. It's been years since Dipset ruled the streets, but instead of letting that legacy stand tall, he's been chipping away at it brick by brick. And now, it's starting to look like desperation. Jim popped back up on Angela Yee's show, and once again found a way to talk about Camron. Yes, again. And before Jim's fans start waving their pom-poms, understand this. There's no reason for Jim to even be up there answering questions about Camron, especially ones that could have easily been avoided with the polite no comment. That's not how a man at peace with the past moves. That's how someone looking to stir things up behaves. It's been a month since Kanye West sent shots Jim's way. A full month. That would have been the time to respond, if you were going to respond. But Jim stayed quiet. And now that Kanye's moved on to 2 different albums, Jim decides it's time to talk. That moment has passed. You can't show up to the battlefield after everyone else has gone home and expect people to care. The buzz is gone. The spotlight has moved. Yet Jim's still chasing it, hoping the dust he's kicking up will turn into attention. He dropped his latest project at the church steps and even tried to pump life into it by releasing a deluxe version. But the numbers tell the story no artist wants to admit. Barely any streams, no traction, no hit record. The only song that even got a little movement was one featuring 504, pulling in around 200,000 streams. That's after 6 months of marketing. That's not a win. That's what the industry calls triple plastic. And when the music isn't hitting, some artists go for controversy. Cue the Camron comments. This is a pattern for Jim. When the music flops, he brings up Camron. When the albums stall, he leans into old stories. But the thing is, it's not working anymore. The original game plan, to spark interest by revisiting the Dipset drama, is falling flat. People remember how this all went down. Camron told the truth years ago. Even 50 Cent clowned Jim about it when they were beefing. Back then, Jim jumped ship, sided with 50 along with Jewels, and that's when Dipset as we knew it ended. That wasn't just a petty move, it was a betrayal. You can't be the glue of a movement one day and the hammer tearing it apart the next. Jim Jones was vital to Dipset's rise, no doubt. He had the hustle, the ambition, the street energy that pushed Dipset into the mainstream. Without Jim, Dipset may never have been more than Camron and a few close affiliates. But ambition without loyalty is a dangerous mix. And when Jim started making moves that benefited him while tearing down what they all built, the cracks started showing. It's wild to hear him say now that he helped Camron write all his albums. Really? This coming from the same Jim Jones, whose early bars sounded like uncut street mumble? Nobody was checking for Jim's pen back in the day. Let's be real. He only found his sound when Max B and Stack Bundles came into the picture. They polished him. They gave him melodies, song structure, confidence. Sure, Mace taught him the basics of rapping, but it was Max and Stack that made him listenable. They wrote for him, coached him, and built that wave. To now suggest he wrote Camron's material is not just reaching, it's full-on fiction. And then there's the issue of credibility. Jim's history is full of questionable moments that people haven't forgotten. Like the time Mano, a guy who works closely with Angela Yee, appeared on her show with Jim, despite having snatched Troy Ave's chain after the Irving Plaza shooting. A man he was supposed to be cool with. That chain sat in the shadows for 7 years before he bragged about it. Who does that? That's not loyalty. That's clown behavior. Jim himself was once arrested in Atlanta and mysteriously released with no charges. Meanwhile, wiretaps connected him to people who received football numbers. Yet he was never pulled in. That raises eyebrows. How do you skate when everyone else around you is going down? The streets don't forget stuff like that. And while he was navigating those scandals, his career quietly drifted. He never hit the heights Camron or Jewels did. His moment came, and then it went. So when Jim starts taking shots at Camron and Maze again, saying they were never really from the turf, it just sounds bitter. What are we even talking about here? Jim's from the Bronx. Cam and Maze are from Harlem. They grew up a few minutes apart. Dipset wasn't about one block. It was about energy, style, unity, and creating a movement. But Jim's got this obsession with being from the turf, like that's the only badge of authenticity. as if being from a certain street automatically makes you more real than someone who made their mark in other ways. And let's not gloss over this weird obsession Jim had with gang culture. He wasn't just repping Dipset. He started portraying himself as a blood. Not just repping colors, but really claiming gang life. But those who were there know the truth. Jim wasn't that guy. He wasn't the one people feared. He wasn't Alpo. In fact, when Alpo came around, Jim ran. And that's not even a diss. Any sane person would have. But don't try to pretend otherwise. Don't rewrite the script to make yourself the villain when you weren't even in the scene like that. Jim keeps trying to paint himself as a man who played his position, who stayed humble, who never asked for handouts. Cam never fed me, he says. I fed myself. But that ignores the reality that they fed each other. Cam gave Jim a platform. Jim gave the crew energy. It was a mutual win. When that chemistry ended, so did the movement. And Jim's been trying to recreate it ever since, unsuccessfully. He ends interviews saying he's happy for Cam, and May's doing sports commentary, saying they've figured it out. But the way he says it is laced with sarcasm and envy. They were never really from the turf anyway, he says, trying to diminish what they've accomplished. But here's the truth. Cam and Maze have evolved. They've built new lanes, kept their brands alive, stayed relevant. Jim's the one stuck in the past, trying to rewrite it so he looks like the architect instead of the saboteur. Dipset was lightning in a bottle. It was raw, flashy, rebellious Harlem energy wrapped in pink furs and bandanas. Camron was the frontman. Jim was the muscle. Juelz was the young star. Together, they created something unforgettable. But that kind of magic doesn't last forever. And it doesn't need to. You honor it, move on, and grow. Cam and Maze have done that. Jim hasn't. Instead, Jim's still out here swinging at ghosts, Kanye, Camron, whoever else he thinks is ignoring him. He keeps poking the past, hoping it'll spark a flame. But that fire's out. And the more he tries to bring it back, the more it looks like he's just lost in his own ego. The music's not hitting. The numbers don't lie. The interviews aren't helping. The stories he's telling don't match the history fans remember. So what's left? Nostalgia? Bitterness? A sense of unfinished business? Maybe. But at some point, even the most loyal fans start to see through the act. At some point, the clown mask falls off, and people realize the show's over. This is the era of reinvention. Camron and Maze are doing podcasts and sports media. 50 Cent turned rap beef into billion-dollar TV. Kanye's making whatever chaotic genius he wants. Everyone's evolving, except Jim.